Now the problem is that in most countries, like countries in the European Union, this is not allowed because the parody exceptions that we have, or quotation exceptions that we have, are too narrow. We cannot fit it into that context. And the same problem arises in connection with other examples. Information location tools, search engines. We should, of course, mention Google, our host to this conference, in that connection. Information location tools do things that I think we all agree should be allowed. They help us find things on the internet, point us to this immense array of content. But the problem is that, at least under certain applications of the law, what they do technically amounts to reproduction that is perhaps not allowed under copyright law. There's this big Google cache that keeps track of everything that's on the internet. That's temporary copying. Is it accepted? Well, some courts are not so sure about it. And how about the output from search engines? Is that covered by an existing exception like quotation? Well, perhaps not. We don't really know. Here's a third example, digital classrooms. I was raised in an analog classroom with no computers, but kids today, as surely the students present here, have been raised with digital technology, like these wonderful digital whiteboards. These whiteboards show a lot of copyright-protected content. Is it allowed? If you apply the laws of most countries that I know, probably not. Do we think it should be allowed? Probably yes. And the same is true for PowerPoint presentations and Blackboard and all the other educational tools that we all use in classrooms today. I'm a professor, so I have some special interest in this. These are things that we need to allow. And a fourth example comes from the future. Well, I cannot predict the future. So it's not really the future. It's actually something that exists already today. Shazam, one of my favorite apps on my smartphone, which recognizes music as it is being played. I'm sure all the students have it on their smartphones. If you don't have it yet, download it. It is spectacular. It recognizes music immediately. But technically speaking, this is copying. This is reproducing, and it is probably not allowed if you apply all the restrictive exceptions of the law today. So, lots of reasons to add some flexibility into our system of copyright. And by the way, that has nothing to do with weakening copyright. I heard a panelist say in the previous panel, I was struck by that comment. The panelist is from the United States, where they have fair use. That's a very flexible rule. So, is he really saying fair use should not exist? I didn't really understand the comment. What I think is very valuable to add some flexibility for a number of reasons. Promote follow-on creation, to promote technological innovation, promote education, to promote freedom of expression. In fact, to promote all the goals that we want copyright to promote. This is exactly what copyright tries to achieve. So you may say, and I know right holders and scholars, some scholars will say, yes, but what about legal security? If we create some openness in the system, will that not undermine legal security? And my answer is yes, a bit. There will be a bit less legal security in a system that allows a bit more openness. And the flexibility will definitely mean that courts will be a bit more forced to interpret the law. The letter of the law will be less leading. On the other hand, I'm from a civil law system, which is full of open norms, reasonableness, fairness, duty of care. I don't know what they're called in Russian, but you probably all have them in Russian law because your Russian civil law is at least partly inspired by Dutch civil law, I happen to know. And so most likely that you have these notions as well. These are normal things. so I think a civil law system can easily handle some more flexibility. Another question, does the international legal framework allow flexibility of the sort that I propose here? And the answer is, again, I think yes. You are now very soon bound by the TRIPS agreement. You'll be part of the WTO, which provides for minimum standards of protection under the Berne Convention and some Berne Plus protections, for instance, for computer programs. All this subject to an overriding three-step test, the magic words in international copyright, the three-step test. Sure, you will be able to dream the three-step test in a couple of years when Russia has become a WTO member, which basically says that limitations and exceptions are allowed, but only in special cases which do not conflict with the market for the work and do not harm the right holder unreasonably. There's a great case about application of the three-step test. We don't really have time to discuss it, but you can look it up on the WTO website. It's actually against the United States, and it tells us a few more things about the three-step test and how it should be interpreted. But one thing you can learn from this test is that it does not prohibit open norms. In fact, if it would, fair use would not be allowed. I cannot imagine that. What kind of flexibilities might you consider if you are reforming your law? One, of course, the model of the United States, fair use. This is fair use. I'm sure you're familiar with it. The very open norm, Article 107, Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. But perhaps you would prefer a model more close to your civil law tradition, which would probably be something like creating flexibility inside existing limitations and exceptions. An example here would be the Dutch Copyright Act, which has built in some flexibility, for instance, here in the rule of quotation. And then there is a third example, a third way of doing this, which is also attractive and which I would actually propose as well. How about creating some sort of fair use system next to or alongside the system of existing limitations and exceptions that you have in your national law? This is the model that is proposed, has been developed by a group of European copyright scholars that have drafted a model code of European copyright law called the European Copyright Code. This is a model code which is not enforced. It is sort of an ideal code that European copyright scholars strongly believe in. You can find it if you Google European Copyright Code, you'll get there immediately. Full of good ideas. At least that's what we think, but we drafted it. And one of those is adding flexibility next to the uses that are already allowed in your law, subject to the application of the three-step test. So this model will never conflict with international treaty obligations. I have more to say, but I have the feeling that my